Ever since the owner of the country club at Gulf Harbour began to cut down the magnificent trees around the golf course, we have seen an ongoing change in the balance of the vegetation of the land. And with the full closure of the club in 2023 and the complete cessation of any maintenance to the fairways, greens, tees, sand traps and rough, KWGS have received many calls and comments and general feedback around the consequences of letting the land return to something of its natural state. In particular, there has been concern voiced around the number of sightings of rats and mice, and also the spread of weeds or pest plants that are an issue. These include moth plant, Japanese honeysuckle, and wattle, as well as pampas and woolly nightshade. Some can aggravate health conditions for some people, as the seeds from some of these plants are easily carried on the wind, and they do create real problems. They can also prevent or smother growth of native plants and spread into gardens. So we decided to reach out to our friends at Forest and Bird, and in this video I'm going to introduce you to Jenny Hanwell and Derek Kelsey. You will learn, as I did, about the incredible amount of work that is mostly unseen yet goes on day by day on land all up and down the peninsula. Maybe more surprising is that this work has been going on for the best part of a decade. Yes, 10 years, to help maintain the healthy balance in our natural environment. Of even more surprise perhaps to us was just how diverse and vibrant the wildlife is on the land of the country club, with birds, reptiles and insects. And as you listen to what Derek and Jenny have to say, you will learn of some of the very practical things we can all do to play our part.
Kia ora, I'm Jenny Hanwell. I'm the project manager for Forest and Bird's Pest-Free Hibiscus Coast project. I live right here in Gulf Harbour with my family, backing onto the golf course. I've worked for Forest and Bird for the last 5 years, after working for 20 years in conservation, both here and in the UK. So Gulf Harbour Country Club is a really special place. It's got a really high ecological value because of its proximity to Shakespeare Open Sanctuary. Now, as many of you know, Shakespeare's a really special place. We've got some real rare species in there, and they're doing really well. And as they spread out and as they leave the sanctuary, they've got to have somewhere to go. And Gulf Harbour Country Club creates an ideal stepping stone and a habitat in its own right for a huge variety of species. A fantastic example of this is the Partiki, or the brown teal. It's New Zealand's rarest duck, and they've been doing great at Shakespeare. Many of you have seen the little ducklings on the ponds around Waterfall Gully. Well, now they've become resident at Gulf Harbour Country Club. Our volunteers and lots of local people have been seeing them regularly on the ponds here. Forest and Bird is New Zealand's largest independent conservation charity. So our role is to be a voice for nature. And we do this through a whole range of different activities all around the country and thousands of volunteer hours. We also have 7 national projects which demonstrate ways to do conservation projects within our community, and Pest-Free Hibiscus Coast is one of those. So the vision for our Pest-Free Hibiscus Coast project was to create a safe and healthy habitat for species transitioning from Shakespeare and sanctuaries at Tiri-Tiri-Matangi all along the peninsula and through to Orewa as well. And we do that through a dense network of predator control tools, traps and bait stations all across the peninsula that are looked after by volunteers. We've now got over 2,600 predator control devices out there. We're working in partnership with Auckland Council on nearly every park, and we couldn't do that without incredible donations, grants, and most importantly, volunteer time. Over 175 people volunteer their time each year, giving over 8,000 hours to the project to help protect our native species. And we always need more volunteers. Pest-Free Hibiscus Coast just wouldn't exist without them, and the peninsula would be a very different place. And that's particularly important right here on Gulf Harbour Country Club. We've got over 125 traps and bait stations here on the course, and it's put together through an intensive network which is following best practice to make sure we've got them nicely spaced out. So there's a trap or bait station in the home range of every pest animal that's here on the course. So we're doing as much as we can to be able to try and remove rats, stoats and possums from the golf course and the surrounding area to make it a safer place for wildlife. And our volunteer Derek, who does these traps and bait stations week in, week out, he needs some help. So if you've got a little bit of time during the week, we're really looking for more people that can help volunteer to do pest control on the golf course and also some of the surrounding areas as well. So if you're interested, give us a call and we'll find a role for you. So Forest and Bird have been carrying out predator control here on Gulf Harbour Country Club for about 8 years now, and we've always had a really good relationship with the club owners. Fortunately, before the club closed, we had an agreement in place to carry on doing the predator control, and we're fortunate that we can only do this because we're an independent charity, we're not a contractor, and we rely on incredible volunteer time from Derek to be able to get this done. Now, one of the things that we've heard recently from our local residents is a concern around increase in rat numbers. And so we've looked really carefully at the data that we've collected over the last year. So the amount of bait that's been taken, the number of rats that have been caught, and also our pest animal monitoring, which is a recognised technique using something called a tracking tunnel to be able to monitor pest animal density. And our data is not showing any change in terms of increases in rat populations. They're staying pretty steady. What we are seeing, however, and probably what you're seeing out and about on your place, is a change in the way the animals are moving. So the increase in the long grass and the change in habitat type through the seasons means that the rats are moving into different places. So their pathways are changing, they're able to travel to different areas, and so we're seeing them more. However, our numbers are not showing an increase, and we can be pretty clear on that data. It's pretty reliable stuff. So twice a year, we also do what we call pest animal monitoring. So this is really important because not only are we wanting to find out how many pests that we can catch or bait, we're probably more interested in what we're leaving behind. So the density, the numbers of animals that we're not getting. So to do this, we use a recognised method by the Department of Conservation called tracking cards. And Derek here has just pulled out one of the tracking tunnels that we check on the course every April and August, and he's going to demonstrate to you what he does and what it tells us.
This is the tunnel, open at both ends and a mesh at the bottom. Twice a year we do the monitoring, and we do that by using a card, and we put a card into the box with some peanut butter in the centre, and we leave it overnight. Just overnight, we try and pick a fine night. And then the next morning, after we've put it out, we come and fetch it in. Remove the card again. You can see a little bit of the peanut butter left there, and you've got the tracks on there. This ink is quite tacky, so that they walk in, have a feed off the peanut butter, and then they walk out again and they leave a footprint. These small prints indicate that we have a lot of mice in this area, and that we then need to take action to deal with that pest.
Now what we'll do is we'll look at the prints that we find across all 20 tunnels that we have on the golf course, and we'll develop a bit of an index that tells us something about the density of pest animals that we've got here. And then we'll use that information to look at how we can perhaps add in another trap, another bait station, move things around to try and increase the level of control for that pest animal in the area. But what we also need to remind people is that just because predator control is happening in an area, because we've got traps and bait stations, it doesn't mean that there are none. So the method that we're following is for suppression or control. It's not eradication. We can't get it to zero. And this is because we can't defend the site from surrounding areas. And also, to have eradication of rats, you need to have a grid of 25 by 25 metre bait stations. As you can imagine, that's pretty impossible here, and we can't defend that unless we've got a big old fence around the golf course. So what we need is you. And a lot of people living around the course are already part of our backyard trapping programme. So Forest and Bird run a programme here on the Hibiscus Coast whereby anybody can get a free trap from us, and it's really easy to use, it's pet safe, it's child safe, and all we need you to do is record your catches and set that trap really often. And that's something that anybody can do to be able to help the bird life here on the Country Club and help to support the work that we're doing out there on the fairways. So one of the challenges we face really in trying to carry out pest animal control here on the peninsula and protect the bird life is trying to get as many people as possible to realise that if you see a rat or a possum or even a mouse, it's not someone else's problem. To be able to really control these really fast breeding species, we all need to be able to do something about it. And there's something that everyone can do. You can set a trap in your backyard, you can give some time to volunteer, you can spread the word, or you can donate as well. It all makes a difference. So thanks to being so close to Shakespeare, Gulf Harbour Country Club has a really huge level of biodiversity. Some might say it could even be the most biodiverse golf course in New Zealand. There's over 55 species of birds been recorded here, and as part of our annual bird survey across the whole peninsula, Forest and Bird carries out bird counts right here on the course as well, and in sites close by. One thing that we're seeing is there's a real increase in some of the key native species, and there's so much to see here. Whenever you go for a walk on the golf course, just listen out, look around. Pretty sure there's something new that you're going to see. There's also been plenty of native lizards and insects recorded here on the course. So you might see some tree weta, you might even see some of our native skinks as well. And this year we've had a particularly great year for fruiting and flowering trees. So you might see the really orange berries of the coprosmas. And come spring, we know that there's going to be heaps of Kouafai flowers leading into all of those amazing Pohutukawa at Christmas. And some parts of the golf course, especially around the coastline, are actually classified as significant ecological area. They've got a really special habitat type, and it's certainly something that's worth protecting. So one thing I know that people have also been commenting on around the golf course is the presence of noxious weeds, environmental pest plants, things like woolly nightshade, pampas, moth plant, species like that. Now, these plants are a problem because they displace our native trees. So where you've got these huge stands of pampas and woolly nightshade, they end up taking the place of some of the native trees that provide food and shelter for our native animals, our native birds. When the club was open, these pest plants were managed by members and occasionally by ground staff as well. But now they've been left to grow crazy, and being weeds, they spread really quickly. Now, some areas it's going to be very difficult to do anything about, and unfortunately it's not something that we can ask council to do either. With it being private property, it needs to be up to the landowner. Unfortunately here, that can't be enforced either. However, there is something that we can all do. At the moment we have these really dense areas where we've got a lot of woolly nightshade, a lot of pampas, but I've noticed in other places around the course you've got the smaller plants coming up. Now with something like woolly nightshade, grab a pair of gloves, and you can pull up that small plant really, really easily, pop it in a bag, dispose of it. There's something we can all do. And if you need any help or advice in how to deal with a pest plant, we've got a local organisation called Restore Hibiscus and Bays. And they can lend you tools, they can lend you herbicide gels, and they can give you advice. So get in touch with Restore and see if you can learn how to control some of the pest plants yourself, because every single one makes a difference.
So, quite a lot of information to digest in this video that KWGS created in partnership with Forest and Bird. One of the key learnings is that a lack of maintenance on the fairways means more cover, resulting in rodents moving in different spaces and travelling along different pathways than those they usually do. The staff monitoring the situation have not yet seen anything in the data they collect to suggest that we have a growing population of these fast-breeding creatures, but there are actions we can take to keep the rats under control and ensure it stays that way. We have seen Derek out and about on the golf course working away. He needs some help. I acted as his Uber driver on the course for a couple of days, and it was enlightening and interesting. Please get in touch with Forest and Bird, and Jenny and her team will be delighted to help you make good use of any free time you can volunteer. The reality is that the country club land is not going to magically look after itself, but there are one or two things that we can do as a community while the country club is in this situation. Firstly, we can try to carry out some level of maintenance on the fairways of the golf course. We can also carry out pest animal control on our own properties to support the work being done on the course by Forest and Bird. We can learn to recognise the pest plants and deal with the smaller incidences around where we live. This could at least maintain the current status and stop the situation getting worse. We should recognise that Auckland Council are not able to take action on private land, and so it really is down to us as a community, working alongside local organisations to do all that we can to address the situation that we find ourselves in. The websites of the organisations that can help us are on the screen now and in the description below. Having spent some time out and about with Derek as he has tirelessly serviced bait stations and traps, I have gained a fresh appreciation for how these mostly unseen organisations and volunteers are helping to maintain this splendid environment that surrounds us. We'll close out this YouTube video with a collage of all the birds that have been seen on the golf course. I'll cut the music and just leave you with the bird song. Thank you for watching.